At 2 a.m., a 38-year-old billionaire showed up at her 23-year-old employee's door, drenched to the bone. And what happened next had nothing to do with desire, not at first. He was a young black single father with no empire to offer her, no polished words rehearsed in the mirror. Just a quietness so steady it terrified her. Just a warmth so honest it broke something loose inside her chest that had been locked for years. And by the time she understood why she had really driven to his building, stood in the rain, and knocked on that door, it was already far too late to pretend. Before we continue, tell us in the comments what time it is and where you are watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's get back to our story. 2:14 a.m. Marcus Cole came awake the way fathers always do. Fast, sharp, already listening. The knock was not casual. It wasn't the stumbling rhythm of a drunk neighbor or a misread door number. It came in 3 measured beats, then stopped. Then 3 more, slower, like whoever stood on the other side was fighting their own instinct to turn and disappear into the dark. Marcus sat upright in the blackness of his apartment. The only light was the pale green glow of the stove clock and the orange bleed of street lamps pushing through the window blinds. His first thought was his son, 4 years old, sleeping at his mother's house across the city. That was pure habit. Fatherhood had rewired him that way. Every sound that didn't belong, every shift in the air, his mind went to the boy first. Always. He pulled on gray sweatpants, crossed the floor, and opened the door. Vivienne Carr stood in the hallway with rain running silver down her bare shoulders. Marcus had seen her in boardrooms that fell quiet when she entered. He had watched senior executives straighten their backs when she walked in. He had seen her in tailored suits and silk that cost more than 2 of his monthly paychecks. He had never seen her like this. Her champagne-colored dress was soaked through and clinging. Her hair, usually swept into something architectural and deliberate, hung loose and dark against her neck. For a full 3 seconds, neither of them moved. "Ms. Carr." "I know what time it is," she said. "Come in." She hesitated, like she had expected him to ask questions first, to make it harder. But Marcus had already turned and lifted the towel hanging from the hook beside the door. Rainwater traced small circles on his hardwood floor as she stepped inside. He handed her the towel without a word. She took it and looked around the apartment the way people always did when they first came in. There was a toy truck parked beside the potted plant on the shelf. A crayon drawing of what might have been a dog, or possibly a bear, pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. A small pair of sneakers by the radiator. Evidence of a whole other life folded neatly into this space. "You're 23, she said. It wasn't quite a question. "Yes, ma'am." "You say that like it's a shield." "It's just an answer." He walked to the linen closet without being asked and came back with a folded shirt and a pair of rolled socks. "Bathroom's through there. Shirt will swallow you, but it's dry." Vivienne took them with the careful hands of a woman unaccustomed to being handed things without a cost attached. "You keep spare clothes for women who appear at your door in the middle of the night." "I keep spare clothes because people get cold." Something shifted in her expression. A softening so slight it was almost invisible, like a lock turning one click without fully opening. She disappeared into the bathroom. Marcus went to the kitchen and filled the kettle. When she came back, the pins were out of her hair, and the hem of his shirt grazed the top of her thighs. He looked away immediately. Not out of indifference, out of the opposite of it entirely. "I can leave," she said, and made no move toward the door. "No, you can't." He kept his back to her and set the mugs down. "You drink peppermint, not chamomile. You switch to chamomile after 7 when you've got early meetings." A pause. "How do you know that?" "You've been my boss for 11 months. I pay attention." He heard her sit on the couch. He felt her watching him from across the counter, not the way she watched employees, not the way she watched contractors or vendors or the men who tried to impress her in glass-walled conference rooms. This was different. This was a woman trying to locate something she hadn't been able to name, and finding the shape of it in the simple fact that a quiet man from operations made her feel safer than anyone powerful ever had. "What happened tonight?" he asked. A long silence. Then there was a memorial dinner. My ex-husband's foundation. Marcus poured the water. Didn't speak. A room full of people saying beautiful things about a man who couldn't remember how I took my coffee, who never once asked how I was doing after a hard day, who took up all the air in every room we shared and called it love. She exhaled. He's been gone 2 years. And somehow I still left that dinner feeling like the loneliest person on the planet. Marcus carried the mug to her. When her fingers closed around the ceramic, they brushed his. It was brief, a half-second of contact, but it moved through both of them like current through water. Fast and undeniable and impossible to unhappen. "I drove for an hour," Vivienne said quietly. "I couldn't go back to my apartment, and your door was the only one I could think of." Marcus crouched in front of her. She was still barefoot, and her feet were cold against the floor. He wrapped the small towel around one and dried the rain from her skin with a gentleness that asked nothing in return. Then he slid the sock over it. When he looked up, Vivienne was staring at him with her lips parted and her eyes full of something that was not simply gratitude. The air between them had thinned, warmed, gone still and electric all at once. He rose. "You take the bed." "And you?" "Couch is fine." Her gaze stayed on his. "You're always fine." He should have looked away. He didn't. "Not always," he said. And the truth of it landed between them like something dropped from a great height, quiet on impact, but felt in the chest. By 8:45 the next morning, Marcus was at Caldwell Group with his shirt pressed and his jaw locked. Discipline had carried him through the wrong side of 23, through night classes and a newborn, and a broken relationship that left him a father and nothing else. He trusted discipline. He did not trust the thing that happened behind his ribs when Vivienne Carr looked at him the way she had last night. She arrived at 9. Cream blouse, navy skirt, hair smooth, heels clean, face composed into the mask that ran a company worth 9 figures. But when she crossed the lobby and her eyes found his across the marble floor, something live and private passed between them. Just for a second. Just enough. At 10, she called him to her office. The calendar note said vendor schedule review. He stood in the doorway and watched her facing the window, the river gray and wide below her. "I wanted to go over the atrium installation timeline," she said without turning. Marcus nearly smiled. "You called me in here for tile samples." "Apparently." He walked her through it. Structural delays, lighting revisions, material delivery pushed to Friday. Her gaze drifted to his hands twice while he spoke. He felt at both times like a warm hand pressed to the back of his neck. When he finished, the silence between them stretched out. He was the one who broke it. "Did you sleep?" "A little." "That's not what I asked." She looked at him then. "No, you should have gone home earlier." "And told who what? That I spent half the night at my employee's apartment because I couldn't hold myself together?" Her voice carried an edge, not anger, but the cousin of it, the kind that lives just this side of pain. Marcus stepped closer before the careful part of him could override it. "You don't have to make it sound ugly because it scared you." Vivienne went very still. "No man has ever talked to me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm a person first, before I'm a position." She turned back to the window. He left before the glass walls could betray anything else. But the look she gave him as he reached the door followed him through the rest of the afternoon, like a hand on his shoulder he couldn't shake loose. That evening, Marcus climbed the stairs to his apartment with takeout and found Vivienne sitting outside his door in a black dress with her hair down around her shoulders. "You came back," he said. "I wasn't sure if I should, but you're here." He unlocked the door and let her in. She moved through the space more naturally this time, like it had already made room for her in some way she hadn't expected. He unpacked food in the kitchen while she wandered to the shelf of photographs. In one, he stood in a hospital corridor, young and terrified, holding a bundle of blue blanket like it might break. In another, his parents flanked him on a front porch, his son Eli between them, squinting into the sun with his whole face. You love that boy so completely, she said. Yeah. He set down the cutlery. And I let my parents help. I had to. I was 20, enrolled in school, broken away that had no bottom. They stepped in before my pride could ruin everything. He crossed to her slowly. Who told you everything had to be carried alone? A long pause. My ex. Then me for believing him. You're here now. He stopped just short of touching her. Vivienne turned toward him. Up close, without the desk between them and no conference table to maintain, she looked softer than the woman who ran the 42nd floor. He could see the effort it cost her to stand in his space and want something without already negotiating the terms. I thought about you all day, she said. His breath went rough. Vivienne, I know what I'm saying. His hand braced against the shelf beside her head, close but not touching. The heat between them had its own gravity. You can't say that to me unless you mean it. Her eyes held his. I have never meant anything more. That was the end of all careful distance. Marcus touched her face first, both palms curved against her jaw, thumbs tracing just below her cheekbones, and Vivienne closed her eyes like something in her finally exhaled after years of holding breath. When he kissed her, it was slow and deliberate and impossible to misread. She rose into it and made a sound so small and honest it moved through him like a blade. Her hand gripped his shirt. The other pressed flat to his chest, right over his heart, as if she needed to feel the proof of it beating to believe any of this was real. He pulled back just enough to look at her. No one's ever kissed me like that, she breathed. They were fools, he said. Her laugh came out trembling and soft, and then his mouth found hers again, and the room ceased to exist entirely. The next morning, the word was already moving through Caldwell Group the way rumors always do, sideways in glances, in the pause before someone looks away. A senior director cornered Marcus near the service corridor just after 10. You seem like a smart young man, the man said, and smiled the way people smile when they want you to feel the blade inside the kindness. Just be careful with powerful women. Don't confuse her attention for an invitation. Marcus kept walking. The man stepped into his path. I'm speaking to you. I heard you. Marcus looked at him without blinking. And don't mistake my quiet for shame. He moved around him and did not look back. But by afternoon, he had made his decision. He would create distance. He would keep it professional, measured, sealed. He would absorb the bruise of it himself before the world turned its teeth on her. He stopped answering her calls. He sent everything by email. He avoided the executive floor unless work demanded it. When her name lit up his phone at 5:30, he stared at it until it stopped, and hated himself for the silence. At 6:45, the last of the staff had gone. Marcus stood alone in the main event hall checking rigging for the weekend charity auction when the double doors opened behind him. He recognized her footsteps before he turned. Vivienne walked toward him in cream silk, her face composed, her eyes carrying something that was not composure at all. Are you going to keep pretending? She asked. He set the tablet down. You don't get to use my name like a reason, she said, when you're the one retreating. I'm trying to protect you. From what exactly? From this building. From every vicious thing people will say the moment they're certain. There is something between us. I know. His voice cracked at the edge. That's the problem. Vivienne closed the space between them. Marcus, look at me. She waited until he did. I am 38 years old. I have lived through a marriage that hollowed me out and called it stability. I have survived loss dressed up in black tie and good wine. Do not stand in front of me and tell me gossip is the thing that finally breaks me. Her voice went quiet and steady and absolute. You know what almost broke me? Driving home after that night in your apartment, feeling something real for the first time in years, and then lying awake wondering if I invented it. You didn't invent anything. Then why are you acting like I did? He pressed his hand over his face. Because I want you so much it scares me. Her breath stopped. I think about you when I wake up. I think about you when I'm trying not to. And I know exactly what happens to women like you when men, like me, stop being careful. No one, she said softly, has ever been careful with me the way you are. That's not enough reason. It is for me. She reached out and let her fingers rest against the inside of his wrist. Just that, just the softest possible pressure. I am exhausted, she whispered, by men who want the version of me they can display. You are the only person who has ever made me feel held before you even touched me. Marcus pulled her to him. Her hands flew to his shoulders, and then the sharp sound dissolved into something quieter as he kissed her. Not gently this time, not carefully, but with every unspoken thing that had been building between them since the first morning he had ever handed her a message and watched her read it without looking up. Relief and hunger, and two people finally surrendering the fiction that restraint was the same as wisdom. She clutched his shirt in both fists. He kissed her until the empty hall went somewhere else entirely. When he finally lifted his head, he pressed his forehead to hers and breathed hard. Come with me, he said. Where? Outside. Somewhere open. He looked at her. I won't let this live in closed rooms. The river bridge was half-lit and quiet, warm night air moving off the water. Vivienne had her heels in one hand and her fingers locked in his. They stopped at the railing, and he turned to face her. You sure? He asked. She smiled, and there was nothing guarded in it. Nothing measured or strategic or performed. Just her finally standing in something true. I am done, she said, being loved like a secret. Marcus raised her hand and pressed his mouth to her knuckles. Then he pulled her in and kissed her under an open sky, in full view of the bridge and the water and anyone who cared to look. The wind moved her hair. Not a single part of him was ashamed. She smiled against his mouth. Her eyes were wet, but not from grief. When he drew back, his forehead rested against hers. I'm not going anywhere again. Good, she whispered. Because I won't let you. He brushed her hair behind her ear, looked at her the way a man looks when the whole city narrows down to one face, and said simply, Come home. Her answer was another kiss. Warm, certain, chosen, and when they walked away from that railing together, neither of them looked back. For the very first time. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love makes the world a better place. Drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? Subscribe for more stories that prove love is still the most powerful force in the world.